You are listening to Frog Talk, presented by Black Ribbon.
Welcome to another episode of Frog Talk, where we talk about the modern workplace, communications, branding, company culture, and how at the root of it is the human experience. I'm your host, Nader Safinya, and today we are exploring what it takes to build a global AI agency in an era when artificial intelligence dominates headlines. But we're doing it through the lens of someone who was hacking App Store algorithms with machine learning back in 2014, years before ChatGPT made AI part of everyday conversation. I'm joined by Guy Pistone, CEO and co-founder of Valere, an award-winning AI transformation agency with over 250 employees across 5 countries. Guy is a serial technology entrepreneur who's been recognized by Apple, the New York Times, Google, and named one of Boston's top 25 technology CEOs. His journey is anything but conventional. He started as a semi-pro basketball player in the Eastern Basketball Alliance, built Fitivity, a sports training app that reached 15 million users by using machine learning to reverse engineer App Store ranking algorithms, and went on to create Elite, one of the first consumer apps to use real-time deep learning and computer vision on the iPhone. Both companies were acquired, but Guy's story goes well beyond exits and accolades. He lives with severe Tourette's, OCD, and a circadian rhythm disorder. He lost his father to Alzheimer's in 2020 and responded by partnering with Johns Hopkins University to build research tools. He runs Valere with a 50% rule, dedicating half of his development resources to solving real-world problems, and he's now building new ventures, including Valere Learning, Dactic, and Conducto. Man, Guy, welcome to the show. Welcome to Frog Talk. It's an honor to have you here.
Happy to be here. Very happy to be
here. It's quite a story, man. And I would like to just dig right in. I already am wishing we had way more time. Let's start at the beginning, though. You were playing semi-pro basketball and had just launched a pickup sports coordination app that wasn't working. Then you put some basketball dribbling videos into a standalone app as a test, and 60 days later, it was getting 50 downloads a day. What did that moment teach you about building products?
So even prior to that, what you haven't heard is there were maybe 20, 30 tests that we even did prior to that. So that was just kind of the test that really solidified that we had something there. And kind of what it really taught us, not necessarily about building products, but that distribution really is key. And before you go really too deep in the product, you want to make sure that you really understand your distribution. And as I mentioned before, we tried anywhere from 20 to 30 really different distribution strategies to make sure that we could get traction. Obviously, when we landed on that particular strategy, we knew we had something. So we really had to then unpack to what is actually going on, why did this work, and how do we potentially scale this and double down on that, which we did.
And so actually, as a designer, I would love to know, the actual process you use to go into that, to find those insights, to uncover those insights. What was the research like, actually?
Yeah. So after we figured out that we had a strategy that could work, what we determined was, why did it work? And the reason it worked was, at the time, the App Store was still relatively new, and there were a lot of keywords, there were a lot of phrases, there were a lot of titles where there were gaps, where still there were maybe applications there, but the applications didn't really have product market fit, weren't serving the market well. So we basically used a lot of different tools. Like at the time it was called App Annie. They have rebranded or were bought by something else. I forget what they're called now. We use tools like IBM Watson. We use tools like Google Keyword Planner. All of these different data sources to basically dump into IBM Watson to understand where are the gaps in the marketplace. How do we identify keywords? How do we prioritize keywords? And where do we focus then our time to come up with new applications, and then we would double down on creating content for those applications. So
Yeah.
that was the first kind of analysis phase on where should we be putting our time, what keywords, what applications, what type of content, because these applications were very content centric. So we had applications, for example, for basketball dribbling. We had very niche applications for even like karate katas, right? Very, very, very
Yeah.
specific kind of keywords and training programs. And we, over time, developed this very streamlined process on how we would first identify what we were going to build, then we would research it, then we would bring that research to an expert, right, which was either a professional athlete, maybe high level
Yeah.
collegiate athlete, or a trainer, to work with them on actually building out the program and all of the content. And then we had built ourselves a custom content management system where we could easily drag and drop, basically we call them exercises or drills, so individual units into the CMS, label them, and then organize them into like a string of workouts. And then you had all these workouts, and then you could easily organize them into training programs, and then pretty quickly then deploy the applications into the App Store. And throughout, I don't know, this is like 2014 to 2017, we put out maybe 300 titles
Yeah.
across the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. So we started getting anywhere from, 10,000, 15,000 downloads a day. Got a lot of feedback really quickly, was able to take that feedback and fine tune the approach over time.
Yeah, that's you just actually answered one of the questions that I had. That man, so there's a lot to unpack there. How big was your team? I'm just curious. I love, by the way, that you're doing like the co-creation with the people, like with experts and with professionals and so on. I think that just adds a lot of credibility to the content.
Yep.
How big was your team?
It was small. So first of all, we were still working out of my apartment in Worcester, Massachusetts. Right at this time, I just graduated, about to, getting my MBA. In some of those years, I was like playing semi-professional basketball, traveling on the weekends. So I was doing a lot. So we had a small team. We had 2 engineers. Both of those engineers were pretty much just like interns. And we also had another team of interns. They would come in and they would help me with the research. So we didn't want to necessarily go to these experts and these professional athletes because to be honest, we weren't even paying them that much. We didn't have much money at the time. So we wanted to come with pretty much a lot of the program already created and really get their feedback on how do we modify this? How do we make this like a good proven training program? And then we would work with them on that. And then after we got it in a framework that we think would be effective, then we went and, filmed it. So I would say the team was less than maybe 6, 7 people.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's pretty impressive. So you used, the underlying thing here, the element is the machine learning back then. So in your research, what you just described in analyzing, what was working, what wasn't, and why, were you using machine learning for that particular exercise, or where was that being injected?
Yeah, no, it was basically you leveraging all of these data sources, right? And there is a wealth of data sources online, even at that time. Like, as I mentioned, App Annie was one. Google had plenty of data, so we would like mirror what was going online and making some assumptions on how that would affect rankings in the App Store. We were also kind of making some assumptions as well. But we would take all of this data and we would dump it into IBM Watson, and they would help model it out and basically help us like aggregate, because there was, thousands and thousands of data points. And at that time, just to manually go through all that and make sense of it, it just was going to be too time consuming, right? And too mentally intensive. So this was a tool we used at the time to really just make sense of it and help model it out for us.
I got you. So Talk to me about, so is this what Fitivity was? Is this what that is? Okay.
This is where it started. So Fitivity kind of evolved over
Hmm.
time. So we started as a pickup basketball, essentially social network for people to find and organize pickup
Oh,
basketball. We couldn't get it to work with that niche, so we tried to branch out to other sports. I really tried hard to figure out how to work within the context of college universities in Worcester, Massachusetts, where I was. We had great features at the time. For example, it would create games, and we had plenty of users on it actually. And we would ask users within like a mile radius, can we fill 10 spots? If we couldn't fill 10 spots in a half hour, it would go to 15 miles and 20 miles, and then at some point, right, it would fill it. And but what we learned is we were trying too hard to change behaviors. People had their groups that they wanted to go into, to play basketball or play sports. People at that time were still not used to, showing up to locations. It was not as mature at that time. Maybe today would work. So that we quickly then, pivoted, and I at the time was doing a lot of basketball training, and I just recorded myself doing some two ball dribbling drills. And I had one of my developers just create a simple application, just a list view of YouTube videos of just me dribbling. We actually put it in the pickup basketball app just as like a Hail Mary, and it didn't work. No one looked at it. Then we decided to break that out and put it into its own app and just label it as basketball dribbling.
uh-huh.
And I didn't think it was going to work, and I didn't even look at the data. And then 60 days later, I'm looking at the data in the Google Play console, and I'm looking, this is getting 50, 60, 70 downloads a day. And I'm just trying to analyze, like, why is this application, which is so simple, getting so many views, while this really complex pickup sports content app is just like not getting utilized. And it was just, we figured it was just app store optimization. People were searching for these terms and interested in these disciplines and these trainings, and it was pretty easy for us to get the top spot at that time. So once we figured it out, we just really kind of sat down as a team, scoped out exactly how we would do this over the next year. I got some support also from the university.
Yeah.
They allowed me
That's
to
amazing.
make this. Yeah, so I got intern. I was an intern in my own company to get academic credit, so I didn't have to take a class. I also got a directed study, so that was another class. So I had pretty much 2 classes worth of credits that I could work on this. So I took advantage of all those rules.
That's so
I got
great.
some advisor support. The university allowed us to use like all of the facilities for filming. And that allowed us to put out so many applications within such a short period of time.
Man, that's a real like stars aligned moment. I mean, the university support to me is amazing because I myself was blessed a couple times, and with good support from my educational institutions and so on. And it's rare that that happens. And the fact that you
Yeah.
were able to leverage it as an intern is just actually really
Yeah.
cool and kind of comedic at the same time. That's really
Oh, yeah.
fun. Well, good, man. But so apparently you grew it to 15 million users.
Yeah.
Fitivity.
Yep. Yeah. We scaled it. It kept growing. We did have some challenges figuring out a really good revenue model that was repeatable. So we tried a lot of different experiments and models, and we ended up settling in on, and what was most effective was a subscription model where we would position it as almost like a family plan,
Yeah.
because at that point we had fitness titles, we had titles in martial arts, we had titles in sports, so we had a myriad of different kind of disciplines. And what we did was we gave away, it was a freemium model where we had free content for any of the applications. And if you like it, we would then say you can get access to everything for a monthly subscription. And that was what we ended up working, which allowed us to generate revenue, which I could scale the business. And also at that time, I was trying to raise venture capital,
Yeah.
which is a whole nother kind of journey and thing that I had to learn. And yeah, that allowed us, to be able to close that money. And then, from there, I part of the money I raised, I was from Mucker Capital in California. So then I moved out to California, scaled the company for a few years, and then we got acquired.
So, a major topic of this podcast is company culture and perception and reputation, quality of life, employee value propositions, and how they translate externally and so on. So when you grew the company and then moved out to California and so on, and through that scale, when you were acquired, how many employees did you have at the time?
We were still relatively small. I think we had around 10 full-time employees. Wow. and several contractors.
Okay.
Some of them came from Worcester all the way out to California with me. Some of them, stayed behind. And then we hired a bunch of people when we were out there as well.
So then that's really interesting. So it was still tiny. It was a tiny company. What was, so like, first of all, it's like, I'm very impressed. I'm hearing a lot of, there's a lot of sort of design thinking language in the way that you're describing the way that you think about problems and how you address issues and how to find insights. You're very much, and correct me if I'm wrong, but given what I've read about you and what we've talked about, it's very human centered. You're very much aligned with the end user, the people actually using the product, the people that you're trying to serve, and even those that inspire the content itself. And through that lens, when you were acquired, what kind of, even at that small of a company, what kind of conversations existed, if any, around the culture of this company that you'd created? Because, 15 million users is anything but small.
Yeah. No, I think the culture was definitely important. But what's more important is kind of this funnel that we've built and the amount of users that we built. Because the company that acquired us basically just wanted to take what we had, plug it into there, because they had a portfolio of other subscription-based applications, because that was their focus. So they were actually less concerned about the culture.
I believe that.
and more concerned about like the funnel, which I've heard stories that these acquirers really need to understand. Is this a culture that they want to continue, or do they want to rip down? And I've heard horror stories where they rip it down and the business just tanks. In our case, though, they put on their own developers on the project, kept our developers for a very short period of time. Actually, I was only involved in that company also a very short period of time while it transitioned and switched hands, because they were just more concerned about getting this vertical in their portfolio and doing it as fast as possible. They made some like UX UI changes really quickly, increased the pricing, and that
was it. So then, what was so as far as like the next step and your learning experience from that, what was, so you said a very short time. I'm assuming it wasn't even a year. Was it even a year that you were with the acquirers?
That was way less than a year.
So your team, you guys, what was, the learnings from that experience alone? And then what was what came next? What was after that?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest takeaways was this idea of methodical testing and just making sure that whatever you are testing in the test that you're running, at least the direction is right.
Yeah.
Right. You're running towards a common direction versus, testing in this direction, and there's no like common high value proposition in the future. In terms of what we decided to do next, or what I decided to do next, was it was in sports as well, because that was still my interest, and I still felt like I'm not done with sports. And at the time, and it was very, very coincidental, Apple released a new framework called Apple ML Core. And Apple ML Core basically allowed developers to process machine learning directly on the device, on the iPhone, where prior to that, the data was sent to the cloud,
Right.
and then set back down to the device. So I'm thinking about all of the different ways that this can be leveraged. And in my opinion, one of the shortcomings from Fitivity was it was one-way communication. Like, it was very, like I said, content-centric, where it was just delivering content to the end user, and there wasn't much providing feedback to the end user, right? We did a good job like developing profiles and, based on what people were doing, and developing data that way, but not providing like actual tangible, like actionable feedback. And when I saw what Apple ML Core could do, I'm kind of running through in my head of all of the different applications that we could build for sports.
Yeah.
So testing it out, we just started with, basketball shooting. Can we use it to record the ball going in and provide feedback to the user that it went in? So we built a few of those modules. We built a jumping module where we could kind of measure someone's vertical. And then we knew we wanted to go into basketball. That's something I'm passionate about. That's a very large market. And we decided to go into dribbling. And the reason we went into dribbling versus something like shooting is the thesis was dribbling is really hard to get good at, because a lot of the drills are very monotonous, boring, and they lack feedback. Versus shooting, it's really fun to go out and take a bunch of jump shots and see the ball go in, and there's a lot of creativity there. Dribbling, not so much. It's just really just a grind and hard work. So we built a few of these like dribbling modules where we could track dribble speed. Okay. And not only could we track dribble speed, then we would have these visuals along with it. So we had a speedometer on how fast you were doing certain drills. And we used AR to basically, and this was Apple's AR kit, where you would, as you're doing the dribbling, the ball would hit the different kind of points. And that's how we were tracking the speed. And then halfway through the drill, we threw up a speedometer. We had some audio, and it would motivate you to push you faster and faster and faster. So we built that, and that worked for, 60 drills that we put out. And then we started getting really creative and thinking like all the other ways we can make a game out of this. So we built like at the time, like Dance Dance Revolution was popular. We built a dribbling version for this, where you had to mimic a dribbler. You had to listen to the audio and match the rhythm. We built a module where an AR hand would like lunge at the ball, and as it lunged, you had to avoid it. We built like 10 really creative modules using, again, Apple ML Core, the AR kit from Apple.
Yeah.
And we put it out into the stores, and we got it was definitely a hit. We got a lot of engagement. Didn't go too deep into actually selling it too much at that time, but we started getting a lot of engagement, and the company that ended up buying it was deep into actually the shooting component and building shooting technology. So they wanted to put this into their portfolio for dribbling. And, quite frankly, at that time, I got less interested in sports and more interested in what else could I do with everything I've learned, right? I kind of also felt like sports at that time was starting to handicap me a little bit. and I started getting really excited about AI and kind of all of these other verticals that I could go after. So made the decision that it was time to sell this, and this was an asset sale at that time.
Okay. And just and this was Elite, right? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So then I wanted to just quickly refer back to the AI interest. Were you just always savvy with technology, and did it just sort of make sense to you, or is it something you studied? I'm always curious
Yeah.
about that.
No. So it all again, my interest in tech started with, hey, I want to figure out how to get people together to play pickup
Yeah.
sports. That's where it started. And then in
So like nobody
my
here wants to play.
yeah. And I'm looking at, I'm looking at the time, like I'm looking at, Facebook. I'm looking at the time there was a company, what were they called? Foursquare. And I'm
Oh
seeing
yeah.
how they're leveraging GPS, and my mind keeps going to that is something that is such an important tool to get people to these facilities, and how in these courts, and how you can identify them by geo points and see who's around. So that was the interest. What I started to do was I took some computer science courses at my school, developed some relationship with some engineers, and through our conversations and trying to recruit them to help me, I learned more about tech. And I think what really drove home my interest in going down that path was someone introduced me to TechCrunch.
Uh-huh.
And I just started absorbing as much of TechCrunch as possible, like every single day. Um, and it just blew up from there. And really, like, it's a compounding thing, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
everything after that, I just continued to evolve my knowledge base in tech, in AI, et cetera.
I got you. So I do want to fast forward to today. So, after selling both Fitivity and Elite, and obviously you have this very deep passion for AI and for technology and all its capacities and possibilities, which is palpable. What led you to start Valere? Valere is very much about, at least from what I understand, passing that forward. That ability of AI and technology and smart tech to others, in helping other people out with it.
Sure. Yeah. It was during that period of time of growing Fitivity and Elite, we essentially worked with several contracting teams and agencies.
Mm-hmm.
And to be quite frank, probably, I don't know, 6 different agencies. And other than one, all of them we had very subpar experiences, some pretty bad. And I started to think about the gaps kind of in that market and where kind of people had other challenges. I was also lucky enough to participate in Mucker Labs when I lived in Santa Monica, California, growing Fitivity, where I was able to engage with other CEOs and CTOs who had similar experiences working with agencies. So I knew where the gaps were. I knew that there were opportunities to make an agency that was, quite frankly, more responsible, more process driven, um, more focused on creating value versus just giving someone a butt in the seat. And that was kind of my thesis going into it, that we were going to kind of do that and learn a lot along the way. And I was lucky enough that I was able to get, some of my first early clients from
Yeah.
the Mucker network, because they needed engineers. And, within the first year or two, just learned at lightning speed and quickly iterated on process as fast as we could. Try to limit the mistakes as much as possible, but you're going to make mistakes in any new ventures.
Sure.
Built some of our own in-house products at the time as well, so we weren't, quite frankly, learning on clients' dime. So really, it was just trying to learn as much as possible as fast as we could, so we could continue to level up. And when I mean level up, it's more like the type of clients that we would work with. That was really
Mm-hmm.
important to me.
Yeah.
right? Where we were working with a lot of startups, and I always had aspirations to getting more towards mid-market enterprise, larger, even venture-backed startups. So the goal was, how do we get there as fast as possible?
Yeah. And so you launched it in 2019. You are now at 250 employees. Is that accurate? Something like
Yeah,
that?
correct.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, how just gut feeling, how does that even feel to you? Is that something you even imagined 10 years ago?
Oh no, definitely not. Definitely not. Look, it's great. It's definitely scary in a
Yeah.
way because historically, I mean, more recently things are changing because we're getting into more products, but our 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 revenue is tied to our headcount,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
So for us to grow, we need to add more people, right? And the risk there is if we ever have any slow periods or slow quarters, right? Acquiring customers or churn is higher for some periods
Yeah.
of time. We start having some tough months. So we always have to hedge against that, and we always have to figure out processes to ensure that that doesn't happen. So what I've learned about service companies is you have you have layers of process to avoid kind of the worst case
Yeah.
scenarios,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You do that and you can kind of hedge a lot against a lot of the risk. And the other, piece that I think is really important is, and I don't think a lot of service agencies get it. And I think maybe because I came from a consumer product background, I got it. Like, you really need to talk to your customers and your clients and ask, why did you hire us in the first place? Why are you still with us? And if they leave, why did you leave?
Yeah.
And like understanding those three things really allowed us to empathize and like with our clients and our ICP. So we're able to speak to our ICP a lot better when we have these conversations because we truly understand them.
Yeah. I mean, you're speaking my language, brother. The two fundamental questions that I always ask is, I mean, every company should be asking is why would anyone want to buy from you and why would anyone want to work for you? Like if you can answer those two questions always and have the same answer always, the rest just sort of follows that. The rest becomes operational. And the big question I always ask is, would you work for you or would you buy from you? That always gets a lot of oohs and ahs. So,
Yeah, of course.
but yeah, I just really appreciate your approach because it's since we started talking, it's so human centered. It's very much, about empathy and understanding where the person across the table is coming from, and that's very admirable. And so that was a good segue into. As I'm so curious about this, you've said your aim is to use 50% of your developers' time to solve real world
Yeah.
problems.
Yep.
Two things. One, give me three examples of real world problems, and then how do you
Yeah.
actually make that work in an agency model where, and again, if I got it wrong, please correct me, where billable hours
Hmm.
typically drive everything.
Hmm. Sure. Yeah. So the whole idea of 50% of real world problems is we don't want to just be a typical, service company that is completely driven by revenue. Why? Because quite frankly, I'm not going to be motivated by that
Yeah.
necessarily to some extent, right? Revenue and money drives me to some extent, but it doesn't drive me to work on these challenging problems for years and years and
Yeah.
years. What drives me personally is the opportunity to like see real impact like in the market. And it's also very important for our employees.
Yeah.
We get a lot of employees that they want to come here and they want this to be like the best work of their career, and they want to see like tangible results in the
Yeah.
market. So that's extremely important to us, and that's kind of why we say that. In terms of examples, it can be across, several different attributes. Like, it one could be it's like the actual product in the market and how it's helping the world, right? Like that is one example, and we've done several applications in like the climate tech space. We've done applications for helping fundraising, building fundraising applications for certain groups and charities. So that's like one category. Another category is, and it may not seem on the surface that it's meaningful, but it really is. We do a lot in digital transformation, a lot. And a lot of the digital transformation projects that we do in AI is not just helping companies get more money or generate more revenue or save more time. It's increasing the quality of life of employees.
Yes.
Right. So a very common AI solution that we'll build is, pulling together all of this scheduling, all of these logistics, and making that really easy and seamless. And maybe there's a team of like 10 people that are pulling their hair out, chasing people down, getting on like pointless calls and trying to get all of these things in order, where AI can do that seamlessly. So if we can take that off their plate, they're happier in their job.
Yeah. They win time back.
Right.
Time is our most valuable commodity. And again, man, we need to talk after this, and I hope there is a part two, because there's a lot. My culture brand program is all about quality of life. It's the crux of it is to improve quality of life across the board for both employees and customers. And there's a lot of what you're saying is resonating very deeply with me. So I do want to, we have about 10 minutes left. There's so much I want to dig into, but I'm just going to ask this question because I feel like your perspective can bring a lot of value to it, given your experience and everything. What is your response to the AI is going to take all our jobs?
It's a great question. I think there's a couple things that we need to consider here. We need to consider that AI in any new technology inherently is going to create new market opportunities. Those new market opportunities inherently will create more jobs. Okay, that's one factor. In terms of take all our jobs, man, I don't see that in the next foreseeable future, like most people talk about. I think people talk about that because it hypes up investors who have like a very kind of specific revenue driven agenda, and that adds to the narrative. Okay. AI right now has a really hard time working between systems, and humans have to be there in the loop to make sure that it can kind of carry that output all the way through to have value. We are years away from where it can do that seamlessly. And even when it does do that seamlessly, you think about all the jobs that absolutely need that human touch, and there's no way around it. Sales and marketing are a great example.
Yeah.
Right? You need actual people. You need that people-to-people communication to actually close deals. No one's going to close a deal with an AI agent. Even marketing, right? Even marketing is going to be super diluted over the next few years, because if everyone just takes, all of their messaging from an LLM. So it's the human touch and the human component that's going to help set it apart. Now, I'm speaking, 5, 6, 7 years in the future. When we get to 10 years in the future, again, I don't think it's going to take all our jobs, but it's definitely going to create huge market shifts.
Yeah.
And people are going to have to do things differently. But I think it's going to create so many new opportunities and industries that, possibly it can very much kind of even out. And I do not think it's here to disrupt and take away, countless jobs in the future. I don't necessarily see that in the foreseeable.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much, the space that I continuously focus on when it comes to that, the future that you're describing, is education. There's this
Hmm.
major gap. The biggest problem that I see right now in terms of this whole fear of losing our jobs to machines is that the school system across the board is still across the board. I mean, in every version of society you can think of, and doubly so in modern societies where it should be, I underline the word should, more evolved, is still so archaic. It's literally these old school, very old school, that I'm talking, 1,000 years old styles of lecture models
Yeah.
and so on that have not adjusted with learning abilities and, attention spans and so on, and are not adapting, and are almost even, not almost, are also threatened by smart technology and machine learning and AI, to the point where a lot of more resistant and sort of traditional professors even are keeping it out of the classrooms and so on, whereas other more forward thinking progressive professors are trying to integrate it in a way because they understand that industry has already adopted it, and they're
Yep.
not doing the students any favors by keeping it out of the classroom, because they're essentially releasing a bunch of students that don't know, that not even don't know how to insert themselves into the current landscape, but are basically a weakness for the current landscape because they're behind, or they're unaware, or they don't understand it in a way that's effective for industry. Which,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I mean, it's just like if a business neglected cloud,
Yeah.
right? In 2013, 2014, 2015, think about kind of all of the different cloud services that are unbelievably valuable today to companies. You're just foregoing all that. It's the same thing with AI.
Yeah.
If you are resistant to AI, you are shooting yourself in the foot. Other companies and competitors will be gaining that moat and building on those
Yeah.
data sets over the next few years. But not only that, they're going to be AI is a journey of trials and tribulations, iteration to even get it right.
Yeah.
So by you being inherently against it, you are just slowing the iteration process that you will absolutely need to have to actually figure it out. Because AI is not necessarily, there's definitely plenty of technical problems. Okay, that's one bucket. But the biggest problem with AI adoption, if you are going to adopt it, is the idea of, are you willing to go through all of the hurdles to figure it out? And what I mean by figure it out is identify the right use cases. Then, once you actually deploy something, intelligently restructure your systems now around these new AI use cases.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you're blocking yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Guy, man, again, I just want to keep going, but we got to stop. So, uh, what is one, since we've been focusing on AI adoption and in the workplace, and uh, all this newness that people are so uncertain about, what is one thing you could leave our listeners with in terms of either advice or how to think about this in a way that's productive, constructive?
I think what you need to consider, whether you're an employee or an entrepreneur, is kind of what are all the things that you work on each day, and consider all of the AI solutions that can be built off that, whether you can build them yourself with some of these no code, low codes, whether you need like an agency like Valere to help you. Um, but don't just but you have to consider the value that you're going to get from it. Don't pick this easiest one because it's the easiest one to build and you think a quick win. And actually, what we've seen in the past is the quick wins, the proof of concepts, they're when they deploy them, they don't see the value, so they kind of halt. They stop believing it. You should probably choose the highest return projects, even if they're challenging to build, and just go through that learning curve. I'd say that's the most important because you're going to get immediate value. It's going to change the backbone of what you do organizationally, individually, and you'll gain more confidence, and then you'll quickly kind of continue to build it from there.
Yeah, that's really well said. Thank you. Where can our guests find you if they want to reach out to you or if they want to hire Valere?
Yeah, they can find us on www.valere.io. That's Valere.io, or look me up on LinkedIn, Guy Pistone. Feel free to inbox me.
Fantastic. Brother, thank you so much for being here. It was such a pleasure. I would love to keep in touch.